Hey folks, how are we? I'm here actually with a little bit of a request. I got a couple of requests to do this. I wasn't going to, so I'm actually curious to hear some thoughts if anyone has any, which is that I had sort of made the decision in recent weeks to do fewer walkthroughs and unboxings and reviews of decks because mostly because so many people are doing them and there's so many out there. And people are doing them really well. And it was never really my intention to do that on this channel. It started just to sort of fill in some time where I didn't have much to say, and kind of blossomed into decks that I was really excited about, and then it blossomed into sort of every deck I got. And I don't know, I just sort of felt like maybe I would step back from doing walkthroughs of decks or opining about decks, because I just sort of felt like, I don't know. That I don't, I want to be able to offer everyone who watches my channel, something that they're interested in, and I don't want to sort of steal anyone's thunder. And since so many folks do walkthroughs, I didn't want to sort of step on anyone's toes, so to speak. So, but a couple people did ask for this one, so I figured I would do it because it's a deck that I like. And so I'm gonna. But I'm curious to hear, what are your thoughts? Do you want me to do walkthroughs? Do you feel like there's too many out there? I want to make sure that the voice I'm contributing to the chorus is harmonizing well and not taking over. So anyway, that said, here's a look at the Tattoo Tarot by Megamunden is the artist. And it's a really interesting deck. It is not a very expensive deck. I got this on Amazon for $12. It was an interesting shipping experience though, because though it was Prime, it took a few days before it shipped. And I don't know if that's because this is a UK-based deck. I had never heard of this publisher before, in my experience anyway. This is Lawrence King Publishing. And it does come in a really interesting box. So it's got like a gold foiled box, really nicely designed, like sturdy box. And then it has sort of this liner that the cards fit in and this sort of loop to pull the cards out. And then kind of a pamphlet, really. It's a little white book, but it's sort of a glossy pamphlet. There's not a whole lot in it, but the text was by Diana McMahon. And so Megamunden is a UK-based illustrator whose commissions range from illustrations for advertising, fashion, product design, and publishing to large-scale murals and tattoo designs. He is currently a senior design at multidisciplinary design agency I Love Dust, and his previous publications for Lawrence King include the Tattoo Coloring Book, the Tattoo Flash Coloring Book, and Tattoo Color and Postcards. So that's the box. It's really just a basic little white book. I was getting a little cranky when I initially got the deck because I could not, on the back of the box it says the text is by Diana McMahon Collins. I couldn't find the artist's name until I realized it's actually on the sides, and I thought that might have been the publisher, but it's actually the artist's name. So it's an interesting deck. I had not heard of it. I saw Fire of Transformations video on it, and I said, oh, interesting. And then I saw, I think Simon did a video too, and I said, I have not heard of this deck. Really weird, because I'm pretty addicted to buying them. So, so I figured I would know about them. How soon can we go without it getting too dark? All right, that's good. So yeah, if you've seen this deck before, I'm going to call it the fact that it's all white people. But in the tradition, I guess, of Marseille decks, they are actually paper-colored people, so I don't know, take that for what it's worth. Aside from that, though, I really enjoy it a lot. I think it's a really successful deck. A couple cards I'm not wild about, but not many. I think, I don't know, I'm always interested. It's a pip deck, and I'm just going to flip through as I talk. It's this is the back, and it has a very kind of playing card attitude to it. The cardstock is interesting. I'll shuffle it for you at the end. It is a really thick cardstock, but it riffle shuffles just fine for me. and overhand shuffle's fine. So I actually like the cardstock. There are a couple printing issues. You'll notice there's a little dot that goes along every card in this exact same place. So that may have been actually something on the template or the design, I don't know. But stuff like that doesn't bug me much, especially when this deck was $12. If this were an indie deck I spent $80 on, I might be a little crankier about it. I think it's largely influenced by Tarot de Marseille and that school. As such, I find, just, you know, in terms of my conversation about neutrality, I find it a fairly neutral deck, which I like. You can see here that the High Priestess is not the Popess or the female Pope. There is some Rider-Waite influence, both on the minors, the majors rather, and the minors. But by and large, it's fairly pre-Golden Dawn, which again is something I like. And you will notice some sort of runic characters or symbols of different faiths and systems in the deck throughout. But by and large, you know, I think it's pretty broad. The Hierophant is obviously not the Pope. This is pretty tattoo. It's an interesting deck because it doesn't necessarily scream tattoo art to me. Actually, I think 8 coins. Even the Dame Darcy feels a little more tattoo than this, but I do like the art style. You know, I'm never in love with a lover's card that's two straight people kissing, but that's just me, and most decks have that. I do prefer the you know, one of the things I like about reading with Marseille is that it is so neutral that if you really wanted to read the Marseille lovers, and let's see if I can find it really quickly. Of course, you never can. I didn't even expect to talk about this. Well, you know, if you've seen a Marseille deck, you know it's a man and two women, traditionally choosing, the man choosing or moving from one to the other. But you could look at that as two women, you know, and the sort of young woman's parent passing her off at the wedding to the, literally cannot find the lover's card, passing her off to her own bride, you know. Who knows? You could look at it that way. That's something about Marseille decks I like. Some big borders on this deck, but they don't bother me. The coloration is very, it's hard to describe. It's not muted. The colors are very dark, but the palette is unusual. It's a very green, tinted deck. Like even the cards that don't have much green in it have, you know, like a green bent to them. There's nothing particularly revolutionary about this deck at all. There's just something about the art that I find attractive, and again, it has sort of a modern freshness that I like. And now we get into the minors, and I was going to lay them all out, but I think that might be hard to see. So I'll just go through them quickly. I mean, they're pips, but with kisses of decoration. It reminds me a lot of the Vachetta in its way, in its decoration. Probably not going to tell you a whole lot about the meaning of the card. So if you're not someone who reads with pips, I don't think this will show you anything that you, you know, are accustomed to. There's not really divinatory meanings built in, but there are these moments of things that could contribute in a reading to a voice, to a visual impulse that could shade a meaning of the cards. The courts are all pretty close up. Again, all white people, so there's that. But the art style on the pip, and one reason why this deck bugs me less is because there aren't any people on the pips, so I don't have to think about it all that much. But, you know, again, it's just a repetition of design with some hints. You know, there's these sort of like teardrop shapes. There's an eye here. So there are elements of it that, you know, might strike in a reading some kind of impulse or meaning for you. You know, here in the Six of Cups, there's this heart rising out of the cup. There's these black flames, these white flames across. So, you know, aesthetically, it's cool. And I guess that's one thing I like about it. There's this big peace sign in the Ten of Cups. I don't know that any intentionality was given to those images, and certainly there's not enough in the guidebook to suggest one way or the other. There are some tattoos on the court cards that sort of suggest associations in some cases. And then there are just cool things. For example, the king, rather than having a crown, has that crown tattooed on his shaved head. It's interesting, too, he has a teardrop tattoo, which of course is a symbol for folks who have been to prison that they, I think, killed someone. So there's little details that could yield something really interesting. So here we come into the Suit of Swords, which is really, it's got a lot of nice energy to it. There's a spider here on the Three of Swords. You know I'm always happy when the Three of Swords is not three swords stabbing a heart. Another thing I will say that I like about this deck is that the number is on each of the pips, so that I don't have to think too hard and count, which is something I appreciate. Because I like to try to get my initial impulses really quickly, so that then I can explore them more deeply, but I like to sort of have a sense of Seven of Swords. Okay, going inside the mind, for example. Suit of Coins is really pretty. I love this peacock thing here. Suit of Coins may be the most symbolic in the deck because each coin has, or seems to have, some sort of symbolism on it. So there's clearly a moon and stars here on this one. There's a scale on this one. So, hammer... I think these are the signs of Freemasonry, aren't they? Here it seems to be some runic characters. I don't know much about runes. So, you know, again, I think this is a nice deck for people who like pip decks but are a little turned off by the what they view as sort of the blandness of Marseille decks. Sometimes Marseille decks are beautiful to me, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I want a little bit more richness just to look at aesthetically. And so I reach for things like this. And then sometimes I want something that is really visually arresting, and I'll reach for like the Japaridza, which is one of my favorites. So yeah, this is it. This is what it looks like. I do really like it. Let me show you how it shuffles. Never my forte when trying to do on camera, but we'll give it a go. So it is thick, but I have small hands, so overhanding is fine, and really riffle shuffling is just fine too. Again, when I'm not taping myself. So bridge shuffle's fine, riffle shuffle's fine. I'll shuffle it a little bit just so you can sort of see it out in a spread. Yeah, I think some people will be upset about the small little printing errors on the side of the card. It doesn't really, you know, again, it's really not an expensive deck. And in terms of its cardstock quality, I actually really quite like it. We're going to get all swords. Oh, no, I guess not. You know, it's got a freshness to it that I think is really cool. And I think that that's just one thing about this deck. Like, I don't think anyone's collection is going to be less for not having it, but having it, I can definitely say that it will absolutely enter the repertoire of decks that I work with for myself and for others. And I say well done, aside from the fact that it's just white people. Again, I think that's something we really have to bring up every time. But other than that, I mean, that's really my only complaint. That and that Lover's card, which I'm not wild about. But everything else I think is pretty great, and I'm a fan. So, yeah, what do you think? I recommend it with the reservations that I mentioned. So curious to hear how people are feeling about it. But I did a reading with it on Instagram this morning. I've done a little bit, not any client readings or anything, but I like the energy of it. I like the flow of it, and I definitely like the color palette is unique, as you can see. So lots of rich reds and blues and greens. And that's that. So that is the Tattoo Tarot Ink and Intuition by Megamunden. And I'll see you next time.